Right, we're off.
All right, is that loud enough? Can you turn this up? I think this is as loud as it goes. How's that? That's good. Yeah? Okay.
Hallelujah.
Sorry for the delay. And again, welcome. It's great to see so many of you here. My name's James Goldberg. I'm leading the development of the North Felixstowe Garden Neighbourhood Master Plan. Today is the first public event to launch our engagement program. And the focus of the day is really about raising awareness about what's happening and the project and how everyone can get involved going forward for the next 6 months. This is slightly different perhaps to other planning events you've attended, where they may have a very detailed master plan that people are expected to comment on. This is a very early stage consultation, and we're looking at developing the master plan in dialogue with the local community, the planning authority, and the adjoining owners. So we know there's a lot of concern locally about the master plan, both on the impact on the town and also around the leisure strategy. We have a range of speakers here today to hopefully talk to you directly from different departments and organisations we're working with as part of this master plan. So the format for the presentations today are going to be short, sharp presentations. Please all hold on to your questions. We're going to break out after the presentations and you can come and find us all, and we can have some conversations about your concerns. So as I said, we've got a range of speakers today. We're not going to take questions.
No, are we going to take questions from the whole audience to the speakers at the end of the meeting, so we all know what our concerns are collectively?
We're kindly going to ask everybody to hold their questions, and we can come and have conversations around the boards afterwards.
Good enough.
Okay. If that's what everybody wants, we can have a short time for questions at the very end. Okay. This is rapidly evolving the program for today. So please, can everybody try and keep quiet for the presentations, because we're all here to let you know what we've been doing and working on, and be grateful if people could take the consideration to listen. So after I'm going to do a brief introduction of the project. We then have my colleague Tim Snook, who's going to talk about the leisure strategy for Felixstowe. Following him, we have Sebastian Birchall from LDA Design, who's going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing so far. We've then got Kelly Smith from Suffolk County Education Team, who's going to talk a little bit about education provision in the peninsula. Following her, Maddie Baker-Woods from the ICB is going to talk a little bit about healthcare. And finally, Tom Shopland from LDA Design is going to be explaining a little bit more about how everybody can get involved in the program going forward. So please ask you all to make sure you take time to look at all the boards next door. We also have, in particular, a little section where we're asking for feedback on what this project should be called. North Felixstowe Garden Neighbourhood is not a particularly catchy name, nor does it really resonate with any of the local community. So we're looking to change that going forward. We're really interested to get your views. There's also some of our colleagues from our leisure team who are looking to hear your views about play provision within Felixstowe. So this is a plan of the allocation. It's defined in the 2020 local plan as a leisure-led master plan. And it might be worth just touching on what the local plan is. It's essentially a big document that gets updated at statutory periods that the local planning authority sets out where development should and shouldn't happen. And it includes topics such as housing, employment, and various others. So the scale of the site is obviously, I understand, a big concern. It's a strategic location as you come in off the A14, off Candlett Road. It's also needs to moderate between the town to the south and the national landscape beyond. So this plan, again, shows the scale of it, but in the context of Felixstowe. And a lot of people, local people I know, consider it an out-of-town location. But as you can hopefully see from the concentric rings on the plan, it is 10, 15, 20-minute walk from the train station. So if we do our jobs correctly, we think it is an inherently sustainable development site. It's worth saying that the master plan is intimately related to the leisure strategy for Felixstowe, and this goes back to some feasibility work and consultation that was done back in 2018. My colleague Tim will be picking those up in more detail. Essentially, it set out the strategy to replace both the existing centres with one new centre on the North Felixstowe site. And the local plan responded to this by ensuring that as part of the master plan, we need to find a site for the new leisure centre. In September 22, East Suffolk Council Cabinet approved the decision to proceed with whole site master planning. And that's important because we are not the only landowner. So hopefully people can see here in this aerial view that East Suffolk Council own about 1/3 of the remaining area to be developed. It also highlights that the central site in the middle is currently being developed by Persimmon, known as Trelawney Place. This essentially came out ahead of the master plan allocation. A lot of people think it's the first phase of what we're doing. It actually predates the master plan work, and obviously we're now engaging with them to make sure what happens around it is going to be as successful as possible. So our role in this project as East Suffolk Council landowners, as I mentioned, is separate to the local planning authority. And our role on this project is really to bring the other landowners together around a table on a scheme that's beneficial to both. And it's worth noting that each have its own set of values and considerations, and there's going to be compromise. I can't stand here and promise that we're going to be able to do everything that you guys would like us to, but I can promise that we'll listen and we'll hopefully feedback to you if we can't implement something, why the reasons for that are. This area also highlights the current land use on the site. I'm very aware the local community has great concerns over both the Abbey Grove woodlands and the playing fields. These are publicly accessible open space at the moment, and we're looking to retain and enhance those as much as possible through the master plan. The rest of the site is in agricultural use, and we understand that there's a responsibility of developing that as well. So what's in the allocation for the master plan? Some elements in the allocation are quite well defined, such as the leisure centre location, housing. The allocation calls for about 2,000 homes, 500 or so of which are already being built out on Trelawney Place. The open place provision is attached to those homes, but some elements are less prescriptive, such as employment space and community infrastructure. Although we do know that there's going to be another primary school coming forward as part of the master plan, in addition to the one that's coming forward on Trelawney Place. And we have our colleagues from Suffolk County Council to talk to you a bit more about that. But we're really keen that we, as much as possible through the next 6 months working with the local community, try and highlight or amplify the local vision for this site. So what does a master plan-led approach mean, and why are we doing this? So you might ask, if the leisure centre is such a priority, why didn't we buy a site to put the leisure centre on? Well, we have had negotiations or meetings to try and negotiate the sale of land for that. They were not successful. The master plan approach is actually enshrined in the local plan, and the reason for this is master planning is about making connections between landscape, building, social settings and their surroundings. It provides a conceptual framework which will hopefully guide the sustainable development of the site in the future. It enables thinking that is simply not possible on a site-by-site basis, and that's why it's enshrined in the local plan and what we're trying to do over the next 6 to 9 months. So what have I been doing on this project since I joined council about just over a year ago now? We've been working to make sure that we've got governance set up within East Suffolk Council for decision making. We procured and mobilised a really fantastic design team to work on this project. This was something that was procured through open public procurement back in March, and I'm really grateful that we've got such a wonderful team working on this. Hopefully you're going to meet some of them in a moment. We've also been working, as I said, with the adjoining landowners to make sure that this master plan is something that's deliverable and valuable to each in their own way. We've been establishing our public engagement program, which this is, as I mentioned, is the launch. There's going to be a range of different ways to get involved going forward. And finally, we've been working with the leisure team, you're going to hear from Tim in a minute, to make sure that the development of the leisure centre is sort of twin-tracked with the master plan process. So at the moment, that is what we're looking to bring forward in what you would call the first phase of the master plan. Quick note on programme for you all here. So we're sort of at the end of January, beginning of Feb is our first public launch. And as I mentioned, we haven't done a huge amount of work to develop a detailed master plan at this point. We're still talking aspirations and concepts. And I think that's really important to highlight that we really want to hear from you all how you can input into the project. Over the next 6 months, we're going to be developing the master plan into a detailed proposal. And we're going to have a second event at the end of the summer where you can all feed back to us if we've done a decent job or not, capturing all your concerns. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Tim.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Snook, and I'm East Suffolk Council's Leisure Partnership Development Manager. First of all, can you all hear me? Is this the right? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. I have been here doing consultation, I think it must have been 6 years ago, so some of you will have been there for that. So where we are is East Suffolk Council currently has 6 leisure facilities across the district. And we have 2 operators, Places Leisure for the facilities in the south of the district and Everyone Active in the north of the district. Just looking here, you can see, well, first of all, I'll just go through. When I started in 2016, Suffolk Coastal, as it was then, had a clear leisure strategy, which was they wanted to increase physical activity and participation. They wanted to improve the financial sustainability of providing all these leisure centres. And to do that, they wanted to go through a redevelopment programme of their leisure centres to make sure that we had the right facilities providing the right activities and that they are maintained on a long-term basis. So how that looked was that it was mainly refurbishing some of the existing sites, but it was to look at replacing the current 2 Felixstowe facilities with a one sort of destination facility, which I'll go into more detail in a moment. But looking at this picture, you can see what we've achieved so far. At the top is Water Lane in Lowestoft. The one in the middle is Waveney Valley in Bungay, and then you've got Deben on the bottom right and on the bottom left, and on the bottom right is Leiston Leisure Centre. So we have delivered that so far. So a little bit more about Felixstowe. You will all know that we have the current Seafront Leisure Centre and Brackenbury. So, as I said, the aim was to replace both of these, and the reasons for that is that both facilities are tired and sort of reached the end of life. Felixstowe Leisure Centre is a slightly difficult design. It's got concrete, it's really difficult to change, it's not on a big enough site to accommodate both facilities. And being next to the sea, first of all, swimming pools are really difficult with all the chemicals in the pools, and they do wear through everything and make it difficult to maintain, and they do reach a natural end of life. And of course, being on the seafront, they get a lot of salt on them as well. So that's 1985 when this opened, and Brackenbury Leisure Centre is roughly around 1990. Now, normally for a size of the town of Felixstowe and with these 2 facilities, you would have them together to make them more financially sustainable and mean that members and the public get to use all the facilities on one site. So, as I mentioned, we've refurbished all the facilities apart from these 2 now. We have just undertaken some refurbishment of the existing Seafront Leisure Centre because we want to make sure that we maintain customer standards until the new facility is ready. So we did some feasibility and looking at how we could address the Felixstowe leisure centres going forward. And what we found is leisure is a really difficult business to make it financially sustainable. It comes down to catchment areas and how many people and how many members you have. So we looked at several sites. I think with the existing Felixstowe site, Brackenbury, Eastwood Hoe and North Felixstowe. And what we found is that when we moved it to the North Garden neighbourhood site along there, it increased by double the catchment area. It tends to be that people will travel through either walking, cycling or driving 15 to 20 minutes distance. So again, that makes it instantly more financially viable to operate. Therefore, as you can see, the new site, that where we want it to make the business, we will be attracting from wider than Felixstowe in order to do that. And that is important again for the business plan and increasing participation going forward. So there is a wider plan for Felixstowe, and this is just some of the pictures on there that we're doing. So I'm going to start off with the Felixstowe Sports Hubs, which people might have heard of before, and it's been going on for a number of years. But where we are with that is that we've got cricket, rugby and football in Felixstowe, and their sites previously were shared, so that rugby at Coronation Park had cricket and rugby, Delwood Avenue has cricket and football, and that was difficult because as the clubs wanted to grow, the seasons crossed over and it made it hard for them to develop further. So what we've looked at is how that we can separate each of these clubs to have their own sort of ground as such, so that they can develop and improve facilities as they go forward for their long-term future. And so what we've done so far, obviously Deepen Fields, which you've heard of, we managed to obtain that, and we've already moved a cricket pitch to Deepen Fields, and eventually the cricket will move permanently there, with a second pitch at the Felixstowe School, where they can work with the school to develop the sport going forward as well. So at the moment the third team are playing there. Later this year we are looking to build their pavilion there for them as part of that process. So we've moved cricket off Coronation. They now have their pitches in place and they have a long-term lease for the use of that. And we've also supported them with the cost of the floodlights so that they can develop their club further. So we're making progress on that. There's still work to do. Then there's Eastwood Hoe, which will form part of what we're talking about today, but the pitches there are underused, and part of the reason for that is that changing facilities are so far away from the pitches, and it's very open, and clubs find it windy and don't particularly like using it. So as part of this overall plan, we will look to improve the quality of those pitches, probably plant some trees, etc., to try and mitigate the wind issues and have the changing facilities right next to it. Indoor bowls, part of the work that we've been doing is, one of the issues with indoor bowls is that they don't tend to be built in leisure centres going forward. Part of the reason for that is that it does sit empty for quite a considerable amount of time. So as part of the Deepen Fields area, there is an area there which is called an old sports hall, and we're working with the Indoor Bowls Club to provide a new facility for them that they can have, again, a long-term lease and they can operate and grow as a club. And we're working with them to do that. And then play areas, I just thought I'd mention that. We've got Sarah from the leisure team out there today. Sarah's overseeing refurbishment or end of life, looking at how we can improve our play areas across the whole district, but there's several happening in Felixstowe, of which Sarah, I'm sure, will tell you more if you want to go and speak to her afterwards. So just some of the work that we're doing. So back in 2018, we had drawn a floor plan of what we wanted within the facility, that how much that would cost, and how the business plan would work, etc., etc. Obviously, since 2018, one, we didn't secure the land at that time, but also we've been through the pandemic and we've been through all the utilities costs, which has really hit the leisure service. So basically, leisure stopped dead during the pandemic and has had to rebuild itself. Nationally, what's happened is leisure centres and facilities that have already been refurbished in recent years or are new got back to their pre-COVID days 10% quicker than others. But then the utilities problem came up, which meant that gas, which is the most, or has always been the way of how we would heat the swimming pools, etc., went up hugely in price. And also, things have changed further, whereby going forward, we won't want to use gas for our leisure centres. We will want to be more carbon neutral, more green technology. So we've also visited several sites that have got that. The Ravelan Sports Centre in Portsmouth is the first site that has reached BREEAM Excellent. And in that, that's reduced all the energy costs. There is no gas, it's all electric. There's all proper systems in place, so you don't have air conditioning, but you go into the gym and it's all cool. It's very clever, very technical on how they do that. So we're visiting sites to make sure that we learn, so that we can, when we finally design properly ours and have it, it will be fabric first design, so there'll be no wasted corridors that need heating. That we can reduce the energy costs. It will be electric, air source heat pumps, that sort of thing, mitigated with the additional costs because it's more expensive than gas, with PV, which is solar panels, etc., to make sure, again, that the business works. So it's got more challenging as we've gone on, and prices have gone up. So where we are, if we could move forward, is originally, we've got a floor plan, which we're now revisiting. The idea is that we would make sure that with the current facilities you have, that we would have at least that and some to make it more of a destination facility. So things that we're looking at, and all of these are to be confirmed of what we're looking at again, but the idea was work with Sport England, we look at future growth to make sure that this facility, if designed correctly, can be there for the next 40 to 60 years and has the ability to change when different activities come in. So it's got to be the right rooms, the right sizes, etc. So one of the things we were clear on is that swimming, to make sure we've got enough swimming space going forward, we've currently got 6 lanes, we're looking at 8. Teaching pool that we haven't got at Felixstowe that has a movable floor, which really opens up what activities and what age groups that you can teach, because swimming is a life skill which is really important. And then the leisure swims, obviously you've got a flume at the moment, so it's what can we put in there to make it a destination, looking at splash pads and things like this. Sports hall at Brackenbury, you've got 5 courts, so we need to replace that. Gym at the current Felixstowe, although we just refurbished that, it's a very small gym for the size of Felixstowe, so we'd be looking at something that was much larger than that. I say 120 stations, the way that gyms are working, it's not just stations now, it's about flexible space and other things that you can bring in it. So it's having the space to do that. Dance studios, squash courts, we have 2 squash courts at Brackenbury, so we would want to replace those. Squash is an interesting one, it does sometimes become more popular and go down. Its key times are between probably Monday to Thursday in the evenings. So it's okay, so that space, how can it be used all the time? When we went to the Ravelin one, they have 2 glass-back squash courts, but the middle moves so that you can use it as a dance studio as well. So a lot of what we're looking at has to be sort of really thought through design. Then one of the key things, I've got some other bits there, cafe, treatment rooms, those sort of things, climbing wall, that sort of thing. But more importantly, we're looking at, instead of just a leisure centre, it's more of a health and wellbeing hub. So you have the business of leisure, which is there to provide on that, but as you come in, there'll be a cafe, potentially a quiet cafe. We're working with the NHS to look at, do we have treatment rooms there? As our leisure, we now provide Feel Good Suffolk, which is adult weight management, smoking cessation, and physical activity, and we do strength and balance. So all of those things, we want to work with partners to make sure that it's somewhere that people could come into the entrance area, sit down, feel happy. Could we have a link to a library? That sort of thing. So it's a hub that people can go to, that we can do other things as opposed to just the sports and leisure aspect of it. So next stages for us is revisiting that, making sure we've got the right facilities for what is needed going forward, making sure that the business plan works up, and then we'll start to look at the external design, which will be heavily influenced by the master planning of where it finally ends up. So I think that that's my last slide on that, so I'm going to hand back to James.
Thanks, Tim.
Can I just ask one question?
Can we save all the questions for the end? Is that all right? Next up, we've got Sebastian from LDA Design, who's going to be talking to you a bit about what we've been doing so far in the master plan. I understand, but we're trying to just keep a certain pace about the proceedings today, so we hadn't originally planned to have questions. We're going to take some questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming today. So my name's Seb Birchall. I'm an urban designer from LDA Design. We were brought on by the council in May 2023 to undertake planning, master planning, urban design and landscape strategy for the site, which form part of a wider outline planning application. So since May 2023, we've undertaken a workshop process to create a successful master plan. At each workshop, we work closely with the council, external organisations and technical experts to fully understand the opportunities and constraints of the site, but also to agree upon them as well. Under the themes of a common starting point, so the baseline information of the site, carbon and green and blue infrastructure, active travel and connectivity, placemaking and land use, we've built a framework from which a master plan can evolve. The framework, effectively a blueprint for the site, contains 3 principles. So the first principle is ensuring the master plan has a strong relationship with the wider context. We want the identity of the master plan to reflect Felixstowe's community, coastal and estuarine location, also make sure it connects effectively with the national landscape surrounding the site. The principle also relates to providing walking and cycling routes and seamlessly linking to local assets, including the town centre, seafront, the natural landscape and the estuary landscape as well. We also want to provide a tailored mix of uses and facilities that will build community cohesion more widely in Felixstowe, making it a great place to live, work and visit.
I'm sorry, I can't hear. There's a lot of noise going on at the back here. We're having great difficulty hearing now. Sorry.
That's right, sorry. If you just give me 1 second, I think changes. So yeah, if we just carry on a second, cool. Thank you. So the next principle is design master plan through a leisure-led approach. So by leisure-led approach, we mean seizing the opportunity to create a network of health and wellbeing facilities. For instance, a leisure centre with a GP surgery and a cafe next to it. We also identified the need to create multifunctional spaces, so this means spaces with more than one use. For example, areas that you could connect with nature, walk your dog, thereby encouraging healthy living and being environmentally sustainable. We want to make sure the impacts of this leisure-led approach will extend beyond the site, elevating Felixstowe's appeal as a thriving coastal resort. Third and final principle underlying the framework is environmental resilience, or in other words, environmental sustainability. The master plan supports the town's ambition of becoming net zero, and this will be achieved through a number of strategies. Improving connectivity through sustainable transport connections to the town and more widely. Employing nature recovery strategies, so prioritising habitats and protecting wildlife. And sensitively designing landscape features. It also became apparent through the process that we wanted to incorporate green links into the site. So this can mean anything from tree-lined walking and cycling routes to landscape-led pieces of public art or plant walls, so structures with plants nestled within them. Prioritising environmental resilience will raise the bar for future development. We want to show others, locally but also more widely, that achieving the highest standards of sustainable design is very much possible. So as a result of the workshops, we developed a concept master plan. The concept master plan highlights some key components, similar to which have been shown you on the boards. This is purely a concept, so there is some flexibility around the exact location of these facilities and the types of uses provided. Nonetheless, I'd like to show you a couple. So for example, adequate provision of school places for the community, retaining some key existing community assets, providing a range of local facilities that people can walk and cycle to, and also strengthening the relationship with the town. As I say, I'll be over by the boards if you have any other questions. Yeah, I'll be happy to do my best to talk to you. Cheers, thank you. Yeah, so at the top we've got Golfer Road here, and then Candlelit Road there, yeah. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you, Seb. Next, we have Kelly from Suffolk County Council Education Department.
Can everybody hear me? Brilliant. I know it's a daft question to ask, because if you can't hear me, then obviously you're not going to have a speaking. Oh, thank you. I think we're trying to close some doors, so apologies. I know you're struggling to hear. I am Kelly Smith. I am from the Schools Infrastructure team at Suffolk County Council. So along with a team of people at Suffolk County Council, we are responsible for making sure there are sufficient school places across the whole of the County Council. We've obviously been working in close partnership with our colleagues at East Suffolk around the amount of housing growth within the county and the amount of school places that we might need to create in response to that housing growth. So across North Felixstowe, I think as James explained in the beginning, there's going to be approximately 2,000 extra homes that have been proposed, and we need to make sure that we have sufficient school places to accommodate that, and that will include the Cllr Place development. So across the whole of this area, we will be looking to provide 2 new primary schools, one that we had already planned in response to Cllr Place, and some expansion of the secondary school site. Oh, apologies, Jane. Sorry. Apologies, sorry, I hit the wrong button. When we're considering what school places are needed, we obviously have to calculate the number of pupils arising from that housing development, and there are specific formulas that we use based on the typical amount of young people that are generated from a new housing development. We obviously look at the capacity we already have in our existing schools. That's always our starting point, is to ensure the sustainability and viability of our school communities that already exist. But clearly a number of our schools will be on sites that can't accommodate any further growth. We obviously want schools to be in the heart of a community. What we wouldn't want is for there to be a large number of new homes and for children to have to travel by car in order to access their nearest available primary school. We want to promote a community school that serves the new development. We want children to be able to walk, cycle, scooter to their nearest school, and we want to develop net zero schools. Across our new primary schools, we also provide preschool and nursery provision. So that obviously enables parents to access their funded education for their 2, 3 and 4-year-olds on that school site. Why does Suffolk County Council do this? Well, Suffolk County Council have the statutory duty to provide sufficient places for all children requiring a school place, and that's why we work alongside the districts and boroughs to ensure that we've made an assessment on any new housing growth as to what school provision might need to come forward. North Felixstowe Primary. So this is actually a photograph, and I'm hoping we can share these slides because I appreciate not everybody can see them. This is actually a photograph of one of our newest primary schools in Stowmarket called Grace Cook. And the reason I've put that up is because in a moment I'm going to talk to you about the new primary school on the Persimmon development. And this is a similar size. So this is currently a 210 primary school, so 30 children per year group. That has the capacity to expand to 60 children per year group and a 60-place early years facility, both of which are run by the school. So the first primary school to come out of this housing growth will be, and again, apologies, you can't all see this, but we've got Golfer Road running across here, and this is the new primary school site.
There's no access on Golfer Road to that, or there is a...
No, the access won't be off Golfer Road, no.
I didn't realise the water was only 3 foot under the road there, where they're going to build on it.
Yeah, so we've obviously done extensive site surveys. So this is the Golfer Road here. This is our site, and then this is obviously the Persimmon housing development here. This is a very draft proposed layout that we've been working on, and I will share the timeline for you for this work. But this is, if you know the site, this is the current access in off of the Persimmon site. So the school obviously needs to be in close proximity to that access point. There's quite a significant ditch that goes along the remainder of the site, which is why Persimmon have punched in at that top end. What will the new school provide? Well, as I said, the new school will initially be for 210 places, so it's 30 pupils per year group, but it is master planned to accommodate 420 pupils on this specific site. It will start with a 60-place preschool because we are aware that there has been a shortfall of nursery places in the area. This is our draft timeline. So currently we're in the design stage and we're looking to open the school in September 2026. So at the present stage, we've had a lot of our site surveys back and we're finalising the design. So later on this year, kind of late 2024, we'll be undertaking a public consultation around the design of the school. There will also be need for a second primary. So the site we've got can only accommodate a maximum of 420 pupils. We can't go any bigger than that. So we will be seeking to secure a second site. Given the amount of growth that this housing is due to generate, we imagine it will probably only need to go to 210, but we will secure a site big enough to go to 420 in case further future expansion is needed. And we'll have to continue to monitor pupil growth to create a timeline for when that school will need to open. A lot of that will depend on at what speed that housing is built out. We need a much larger quantum of growth to create a new secondary school. They are much larger. We have secondary schools across Suffolk that are 1,500 pupils, so you need an awful lot of housing to generate the need for a new secondary school. So again, we will monitor the capacity within the existing secondary school, and we will look to expand that as and when we need to. Who am I handing over to?
Maddie.
Maddie's me.
Good morning. Does that work? Can you all hear me? Okay, good. Thank you very much. So my name is Maddie Baker-Woods. I'm from the local NHS covering Ipswich and East Suffolk. And my job is I'm director of the Alliance. And the Alliance is a partnership between the NHS, all of the NHS providers, the county council, as well as our district council and our voluntary sector organisations. And that working together is obviously very, very important. Generally, recognising people as individuals who need very holistic support and care is also very important at a strategic level in terms of our planning for the future. So part of today is obviously to acknowledge that as master plans come forward, as developments happen, of the health and care needs of the community. So I do have a number of slides, but I'm very conscious that some of it's a little bit small, so I'm not going to put it up here, but I know they will be then made available to you. So we are working together now in terms of the health and care needs of the community in Felixstowe. We have been working with patient participation groups, some of the local councillors, as well as the officers, to understand needs, but also to understand people's experiences of care within their GP practice, within the community hospital, and more broadly. So we will continue that work in order to look at people's needs, and the way in which we try to do this is looking, right. So we are, as I said, we're trying to look at the needs today, the forecast needs, what the assets are today, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, people's experiences, and to develop a responsive plan. And we do that, we try to do that across, and this is what I know you won't be able to see, the whole life cycle, thinking about people from maternity and from birth through to the end of life. So our plans will try to think about all of people's journeys. So we know, as I said, a great deal about the number of people registered with the practices today, which obviously is not just the town of Felixstowe, but the wider communities. And we would anticipate that the majority of people in any new development would also be registering with the practices. So, and needing the care from the wider teams. So we are looking today at how we can increase the physical capacity of the practices in Felixstowe. Obviously, the Grove is the closest practice to this new development, but we recognise that additional space is key in all of them, and it's key in terms of consultation rooms, but it's very important in terms of the capacity of the practices to provide education and to provide support for GP trainees, and so also to attract new staff. So this is work in progress as we move forward. I want to just say a word about dentists, and I saw the, obviously I was able to look at some of the boards as well. We will be publishing a dental needs assessment and a dental strategy for the whole of our area in March. And in that, I think we will get the greater understanding of the situation today in every community. But I do know that there are constraints for people in accessing dental care today. And what we will see is the needs today and moving forward. So I don't think you'll be able to see all of this, but I want to just... sorry?
Would you mind putting that up?
No, sure. I can do. So I talked, it's very small for some people, but as I said, these are just some of the examples of the way in which we'll be looking at needs today and looking at the response from the start of life through to the end of life. So I've mentioned some of these things already, but access to dentistry, I've mentioned the plan, access to primary care to meet needs today and in the future. And we will continue to try and work in a multidisciplinary way with our social care colleagues, with our community health colleagues, as one team as we progress. So I will be here. I'm very happy to stay and talk to any of you about the today, your experiences, your thoughts, your reflections on today, as well as the forecast needs and changes as they emerge. Of course, depending on the housing development, depending how that looks, there will be different needs because the needs of people who might be younger people will be very different to people who are older. So we need to work together to continue that journey, understand the development and understand how health and care needs will need to respond to that. I'll stop there, but I'm very happy to talk to anybody later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker now is Tom from LDA Design, who's going to tell you a bit more about how you can get involved.
Hi everybody, my name is Tom Shopland from LDA Design. My job is to help East Suffolk Council with the public engagement, of which this is the beginning. So the government has an ambition for a new planning system to bring democracy forward, so that communities can decide what good design means locally, reflecting local characteristics and making the most of opportunities as they emerge in the process. And I have a little extract from a book which I think kind of encapsulates some of the values that I hope to bring to the process. The book is called Citizens by John Alexander, Why the Key to Fixing Everything is All of Us. We call people who don't possess the right technical credentials amateurs, but the root of that word is from the Latin for love, and that's its own kind of qualification. Arguably, the deep care and passion which the citizens I see everywhere, especially here, have in spades. It is the vital ingredient missing in the process. So thank you all for beginning in this process with us. So as I say, this is the first event today to bring awareness of the project and bring some transparency and invite people into the process. We are recruiting for a citizens panel, which has been open for the last 6 weeks, but is closing on Thursday. And you'll find more information about that on the website, or come and talk to me. We have at the moment 50 applicants for joining the citizens panel, but sure, please come and find me afterwards. But the idea of the citizens panel is that it's a representative group of Felixstowe, so we're hoping to have 20 to 25 people that represent the different demographics of Felixstowe that we can kind of go into a deep learning process with month by month to kind of deliberate on some of the live decisions that are happening in the design team, and that the citizens can give collective recommendations that will be made public and that they will be publicly responded to by the design team. At the moment, we're looking for more people under the age of 40 to help make that representation. I knew that wasn't going to be a popular comment, but it's something that we're trying to work on, so just wanted to say that. Some of the workshops that we'll be going through range from the environment to stewardship of open spaces to active travel and homes, and the idea is to kind of learn from the local people's experiences and try and bring that into the process. We will also be holding a series of online workshops as well, which will be publicly accessible for everybody. Won't have that same kind of demographic selective piece to it. And also a series of youth workshops, which we're hoping to arrange for Felixstowe School, and will be held in the Abbey Grove Woodland. So I think that's everything for now, but please come and find me if you want to talk more about the public engagement. As I say, this is the beginning of the next 6 months of involving people in. So please continue the passion and be involved.
We will.
Good, good.
I will anyway.
So I think, so it sounds like by popular demand, like we wanted to kind of make it more informal discussions, but it sounds like by popular demand, we are going to move on to questions. So the way that I invite you to begin this is let's do 2 minutes of talking to the person next to you about reflections of what you've heard and what questions you've got. Thank you. I was going to say we would build that and then goes into the questions. But excuse me, everybody. Let's take. So we're going to take 20 minutes for questions then, and then we're here for the rest of the afternoon to go into discussions.
Can I start, please? Let's start with some questions, please. Firstly, thank you, everyone, for the good work you put into this. I know you're working hard. Citizens groups, please don't forget the existing young people's work in Felixstowe. Use Level 2, use Boost, already engaged in the high school on environmental projects. So the work has already been done. Pick them up. My particular concern, sorry, wearing a dog collar, schools. The proposed primary school is almost double the size of any other primary school in Felixstowe, moving from a 200 school to a 400. That's going to be a challenge in terms of, firstly, filling the school. I don't think we'll have a problem filling the school. The challenge will be making it lodged in the community, because a 400-place primary school is a very different beast to a 200-place one, which is what our community thrives on, being local. So please reconsider the size of the schools, and I please hope that when you do go out to tender as to who is going to control these schools, your first port of call will be the Diocesan Multi-Academy Trust. Absolutely. There is only one Church of England school in the whole of this area, and we have been trying since before the academy was built, what was previously to have a Church of England primary school, possibly high school, in this part of East Suffolk. Now, why? Because there's a particular, you ask the people who send their children to Necton School, why they send them there, rather than any other school.
Thank you very much. Kelly, would you like to respond?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you're still close by me, but people at the back might not hear my response. So if I take your first point around the sizing of the school, so 210 is now moving to be a much smaller primary school, and for viability reasons, Academy Trust, when they bid for schools, prefer them to be larger, which is more financially viable to have more pupils on one side than run several small schools across the county. But you're right, it takes time to establish a school within a community. And so schools grow from the bottom up. They take the younger year groups first, reception and Key Stage 1, and then we grow them to take Key Stage 2 pupils over a number of years. So Grace Cook in Stowmarket, which opened 2 years ago, only opened with its youngest pupils to start with, so that it could become fully embedded within its community. Your second point around who runs the school. So there has to be an open and transparent process in order to do that. It's called a presumption process, and any Academy Trust is obviously welcome to bid for that school, and we will be seeking an Academy provider later in the year. We would certainly welcome every Academy Trust to put their hat in the ring.
Thank you very much. Gentleman down here.
Right. You've done a really good job, fantastic job of what you're doing. That's in the future. You know what I'm going to say, so I'll speak.
Give him the mic.
Yeah, you've done you've done a really good job of all what you've done, but what are you doing about the infrastructure first?
Yeah.
The infrastructure of roads in the Felixstowe is chock-a-block down. The rest of the population are going to have another 2,000 houses, which is going to be at least 3,000 cars, because you work on 1.5. The flooding, where the lady said, I've already said, it's 3 feet under the ground where they're going to put a primary school.
Yeah.
The water table is right next to a dementia home.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't have to say any more, because what are you going to do about the flooding? Because Morgan floods now. You can't pump out into the Devon anymore. All that water is going to go to exactly the same place, which is contaminated alongside where the school's going to be, going down to the King's Fleet now, because you have to pump it up to Bucklesham. And all that water is contaminated. So what have you looked into that first? The infrastructure of these roads and everything else has got to come before what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the concerns immediately at the moment, and I can encourage you all, you need to be writing to the representative politicians and departments to address them.
What's the point of the meeting?
We are working closely with all the departments around future plans, but it's just not my role to respond to every infrastructure
When are you going to talk about the
issue. Next question, please. Gentleman in the green.
What are your plans for Walton Recreation Ground?
So if everybody hear that, the plans for Walton Recreation Ground. Tim, is this one for you? It's off-site, it's not in the master plan boundary.
Hello, can I just ask what the specific question on Walton is?
Well, the question was, what are your plans for Walton Recreation Ground? I noticed this year there have been no football posts put up, so it looked as though is it going to be obsolete? Is it going to be reused?
We hope to reuse it. At the moment, as you know, the changing facilities were vandalised to such an extent that they have to be replaced. So we are working on how we can replace those going forward. And if you don't have change rooms, that restricts what can be played on there when it comes to the Suffolk FA.
So is it going to remain a sports leisure area?
Yes. It's just it's a really expensive thing to replace. It's end of life. It's been vandalised. It was horrendously vandalised. So we've got to demolish it, and we're looking at what we can replace there so that we can have, because we have to have the changing facilities there to have the football on it. That's what we're aiming for.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a question in the front row here.
Reach. I've got a very weak voice.
Thank you. Could I just widen the debate somewhat? Because for the last over a year, I've been arguing with the ICB about exactly what will be happening to the Felixstowe Peninsula with regards to the growth of population. I've had a big argument with our own district council as to the number of houses that in total will be built over Plan 1 and 2. And the actual figure that I have is 4,196. I think we've now agreed, have we not, Maddie, that the district council is accepting something like 3,900 and whatever, but the real increase in population is in excess of 10,000 people, many of which will have cars. You are taking the bypass to be your service road into this development. How are you actually going to ensure the rest of us actually will have relatively clean air, less traffic, by a road that actually could serve the town without going through the residential areas? Thank you.
So I can't really speak specifics on detail at the moment because it's simply the design work hasn't been done. All I can tell you is that we have a team of really great professionals helping us, and we'll be working with Suffolk County Council Highways to make sure that going forward there are no issues with either traffic or air quality. Gentleman over here.
I think it's good afternoon by now. Good afternoon, everybody. Those of you that don't know me, my name's Mike Deacon, and I have to say that I've spent the last 22 years of my life trying to protect the countryside around our town, which I think is That said, we are where we are, And I've always admitted that we do need housing. We need housing that our young families can afford, principally, not the sort of housing that we're hearing about right now. I have many, many concerns, but what really pleases me this afternoon or this morning earlier was James mentioning that there would be consultation. What I will say is that, James, please, when you consult, listen to the replies that you get, not like the previous administration, which simply didn't. And we are where we are. I do have many problems. Flooding in Walton has already been mentioned. It really is a big issue. And for anybody that doesn't live in an area where their house gets flooded, you cannot believe the misery that it causes, or even the threat of that. If it doesn't actually happen, the threat of it is appalling. So I think we've got to look very, very careful at that. I have also concerns about the integrity of Golfer Road as it is, which I still prefer to call Golfer Lane, because that's just what it is. And that has to be protected. It's a quiet lane. It's designated a quiet lane. It's already become increasingly busy because of the extra housing there is. So please let us protect that during the course of this development or proposed development. Do please, all of you, contact the district council with your fears, your worries, or your local councillor. I, for one, will make sure that anybody that has I've received representation from, their views will be heard, and I promise you that. So thank you very much for coming today. Thank you for listening to me.
We're reading that there's going to be a 30% uplift in the population of Felixstowe, post-Felixstowe. You're planning for schools, you're planning for health, employment. Where are they going to work? The Docks is moving towards automation, so we can expect less jobs there. Martlesham, which is the other strategic employer in the area, that is downsizing, it's moving people out to Birmingham. So surely key to this is knowing where your employment base is going to be and how are they going to get there, given the congestion on the A14 in Warrington.
Paul, did you want to mention something on that point? I mean, all I can say from a master plan point of view, in terms of what we're including or trying to include in the allocation, we are undertaking some research to understand what we need to provide in the master plan for Felixstowe to grow sustainably, what kind of spaces are required for local businesses. That's going to be at the forefront of our minds going forward with the master plan.
Can I just interrupt you there quickly? One of the things we were promised right back at Walton 4 when all of this was kicked off was that jobs would come first with infrastructure. We've got no jobs, we've got no infrastructure, but we are getting houses.
I think what I would say is, I mean, it's an entirely legitimate point, but jobs are being created, not necessarily in the town itself, but around the town. So within the vicinity. Well, yeah, and I think we've already covered that point in terms of infrastructure. But in terms of the jobs, I mean, Port Felixstowe is a good example. It has a huge supply chain, even locally, not just regionally, and the Freeport initiative as part of that is creating new jobs. Now, they will start coming forward in the next 4 to 5 years directly on the Port of Felixstowe. So you're quite correct, infrastructure ideally does need to come ahead of jobs and housing stuff, but there is employment development taking place at the same time, even now, in terms of some of the key industries. And it's not just the port, for example. I mean, tourism continues to grow following the pandemic. That's almost back to where it was before, and that'll continue to grow beyond that. And leisure as well is another key area where we're seeing growth as well. So it's a very legitimate point, and the ideal scenario is always to get your infrastructure in first, but as we know, we can't always work in an ideal world.
Other people do.
Thank you, Paul. One at the back toward the middle there. Yep.
Hi, thank you. I've got a question for the lady from the NHS. Just around the provision of primary care. Everyone in this room will know that we have a lot of difficulty getting access to GP surgeries, GP appointments when they are needed. We already know that the GP Federation around here had a problem with the building of the care home around the extra strain that would apply to an already strained provision in this area. Have we got an actual plan about how many extra GP slots you're going to add with the provision of all of this extra development? It's not just about building a surgery, you've then also got to recruit the doctors to work in as well. We've got a lot of problems here already. The infrastructure, the jobs, the healthcare is just going to pile on top of that as well. Have we got a plan?
No.
Thank you. So we are absolutely working on the estate and the workforce plans, and as I mentioned, they are also inextricably linked. And to your point about new development, also working, one piece of is working with some of the schools around the opportunities within health and care, which is also a way in which to grow our own and develop and employ the talent that's within the Felixstowe community. So that's another really important part of this. So these things go hand in glove, and you're right. The other point that I made, I tried really carefully to talk a little bit about today, but also about the forecast needs. And a lot of the forecast needs will depend on the type of development that is built and the type of housing that is there. That will influence the type of provision that's needed. So I don't think we can reach any exact conclusions on that now, but I want to give you, and the assurance that I was trying to give you was that we are working together to understand that, to develop and to implement plans organically. I don't want to have a piece of paper that's just fixed for now. We're trying to work organically to respond to needs as they evolve, with this being a very long-term potential development. Hope that answers your question in part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. We're going to have 3 more questions, please. Gentleman here in the check shirt.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify, you talk about the master plan. So what is the route, the access route to the housing beyond Links Avenue up to Gulf Road? How is that area going to be accessed for housing and other development?
So the current plan is that primary access will be off Candlett Road. There'll be no access off Golfer Road. There's another access point to the east of Ferry Road through another development that's currently in the planning system.
Which development?
Will there be any access from Links Avenue?
It's opposite Laureate Fields. Yeah. There's a woman in the back with a red coat.
There is a question at the back from a woman.
I asked, will there be any access from Links Avenue? Because there's a little bit of rumours going around that number 3 has been bought by the council.
Yeah, that was purchased for strategic purchase. Essentially,
the answer is yes.
Just say yes.
Essentially, we're looking at access, but there's no decisions have yet been made.
So you spent £500,000.
And in the meantime, it's going to be used.
You spent £500,000 on a property that's laid empty for the past year, where we have a housing crisis and people are desperate for affordable homes, and that property was purchased by from a council employee by the council for strategic purposes.
Can I just say a few words in response to that? I mean, one, it wasn't bought from an East Suffolk Council employee. That's incorrect. Okay.
Really?
So absolutely, I'm standing. Right. The site was purchased. The site was purchased as a strategic purchase, as James has said. There may well be a need for more footpath access onto the site. We don't know at this stage. Quite happy to say that's what it's about, and it's being said in an open forum, so we're being very open about it. There is nothing, as you suggested, underhand of this. It was bought for a purpose. Do we need that purpose yet? We don't know. We won't know till the outcome of this sort of conversation. In the meantime, just to address the empty property issue, we have some work to do on that house, which we've struggled with. We are trying to get it back into use as soon as we can, so it won't sit empty. And my ambition is it won't sit empty much longer, but I've got to wait until the work's done. Thank you.
Lady in the back with the red coat.
In 2018, when you consulted the local people about where they wanted the leisure centre, it was unanimous that we didn't want it moved. You didn't listen to our response. I understand the need for a bigger leisure centre, but the
current leisure centre feeds into the community. People come to the leisure centre, they then go across the road and use the local shops, they then go into town. How will this new leisure facility encourage people on the outskirts to come all the way into town? And my second question is, what will go on the site where the current leisure centre is?
Hello, thank you for that question. One of the issues about keeping the existing facility is that if you were to rebuild it, it's not big enough for what's needed. It will also have to be closed for 2 to 3 years whilst you rebuild it. So, yes, I understand that some people don't agree with that, but it still would not add up, as in at the moment we're heavily subsidising it, so we need a facility that's in an area that can make it work as a business. So that's that part of it. The bit on access on it, well, we are looking as overall in the master planning about the cycling routes, about pathways, etc., to make it accessible. We will be looking, is there possible for bus, etc., that sort of thing. So we will be looking at what we can do to make it as accessible as possible. And that's all we can say at this moment.
No, you're not answering the question, because my point was, people that use the leisure centre at the moment then will come out and use local facilities and add money to the community. How will this new one encourage people to come into town and spend their money? And what's going on the leisure centre site when it's closed, please?
Sorry, on the leisure, as I said, we need this. We currently subsidise heavily the Felixstowe leisure centres. To make it work, whether it was the existing one or a new one, we do need to move the site. When it comes to what's going on the current site, I probably need to pass over to you for that.
Yeah, if I could just come in there. I mean, this is slightly outside Tim's area of expertise, so I hope you accept an answer. So the existing leisure centre, as Tim has explained, needs redeveloping. It needs, building to provide the facilities that are needed for now and for the future. The site right on the seafront, we haven't we have not yet set what that's going to be. There will be more consultation on that. But the point that I want to make is we are very, very well aware of the need to make more connection from the seafront to the town centre, which is why we have done things like, over the years, improving seafront gardens, working with the pier to improve that area there. Excuse me, can I just finish? Come on. Where do I get to the pier, the other parts of seafront gardens, right the way down to Manor End and the CU Cafe. That is all investment that has gone in over the years to boost the seafront, to try and get more employment in the town, to maintain the kind of viability of Felixstowe. And if you look at the results and things that have happened there over the years, and the mentions that have been about the town in articles in the Guardian, in the Telegraph, working with the destination management organisations, Felixstowe, in contrast to many other places, is seen as a really vibrant seaside town. Now that's the level of ambition we've got. That's the level of ambition we've got, and we want to bring something back to the seafront that will replace the leisure centre and will do exactly what you've said. That has now to be planned.
Still isn't answered. How, with the new site, how is that going to encourage people to come into town and spend their money?
Well, the new site will be there for people in Felixstowe. It will draw people in from outside Felixstowe. That's the design. Well, that will be. People will then decide for themselves, as they do now, where they want to go from after that. As a destination leisure centre, it will pull people in, and we kind of know people go on to do other things. Okay. Again, all I can do is refer back to the other leisure centre development work, and the additional people have been brought in. So this is not being done on a whim. It's been carefully planned and worked on over the years. Excuse me, other people want to have a word, okay? I can talk to you afterwards. It's been carefully planned. The plans are being brought to you guys at an early stage for you to have your comments. And we can then be done. No, we haven't.
Okay. In 2018, and unanimously didn't want it to move, and it's been totally ignored. So you don't listen to us.
Can I suggest that we
one more there?
Yeah, move on, because it's
move on, and we'll continue these conversations afterwards.
Yeah.
Which one? Lady at the back here.
Why is he cherry picking the question?
I'd like to come back to the housing. These three of the current developments have, I believe, either been paused or have not sold, and so on. They've all talked about affordable housing, about mixed housing. I want you please to explain to me what this site is going to have in terms of social housing, and I mean proper social housing. There are parents in Felixstowe right now who I personally know who are homeless. What are you going to do about that?
As I said before, we're at a very early stage of the project. The ambition is for this master plan to be policy compliant in terms of housing numbers and provision of different areas of housing need. So at the moment, that's all I can say. But please do keep raising this as an issue as we go through the next consultation phase, because if it's a priority for the local community, it'll be a priority for us. And I think we're going to wrap up the Q&A now, but please do come and grab. Everybody who spoke today is going to be here for another hour or so. Thank you very much.